One day I opened my eyes and found myself in a completely unfamiliar place. There was an unimaginable noise around, while the judge demanded silence in the courtroom. Now he will announce his verdict. The girl realized in horror that she was on trial. She was accused of murdering dozens of people, but she remembered nothing. Due to her young age, she was sentenced to life imprisonment. She could not believe what was happening. Her world collapsed in an instant. Thus, waking up, she became a criminal in the eyes of the whole world. People whispered that only a girl possessed by a demon could do such a thing. They took her not to an ordinary prison, but to a place full of lunatics. That's when she realized she had reincarnated as the youngest serial killer in the country. But the worst part was that all the charges against her were lies. She understood the bitter irony of her situation. Being in a favorite novel is one thing, but being falsely accused as a villain? The carriage stopped, and the guard roughly ordered her to get out. They threw her out into the icy wind, promising that she would rot there. Her new home was to be the Niflheim prison, a gloomy fortress also known as the Ice Hell. She stood at the edge of the world, almost completely cut off from it. This place was the land for those abandoned by all. Her first day began in a solitary cell for reflecting on sins. The door slammed shut with a clang, cutting her off from the world. Reflect? No way, and after all, it wasn't even her sin. She sighed heavily, realizing the hopelessness of the situation. She was reminded again that escaping from Niflheim was almost impossible. But she wasn't going to rot here forever, and firmly decided to find a way out. Fortunately, this place is a key location in the novel where the main hero appears, and since she knows the whole plot, escape is only a matter of time. However, there was one small problem. The problem was that she was now a child. The character she entered was an adult, which meant she arrived 10 years early. The main hero, her only chance to escape, would appear only in a decade. 10 years of survival in a child's body in this hell? Realizing this drove her to hysterical laughter. Her screams of rage only convinced the guards that she really was possessed by a demon. They decided that with such a temper she wouldn't last long and simply left her alone. But gathering her last strength, she swore to herself that she would survive. She would survive and escape from this godforsaken prison, no matter what it cost her. 10 years passed, and a new prisoner accused of fraud was brought to Niflheim. The guard began his standard briefing, expecting nothing special from her. He pointed to the central tower dividing the male and female wings. And behind the yard rose a sinister tower whose purpose was unknown. Why is there a tower in a prison? A watchtower? Wondered the newcomer. Her gaze was drawn to the silhouette of a girl calmly sweeping the prison yard. The newcomer couldn't take her eyes off her otherworldly beauty. The guard explained that there was a ranking system here, and newcomers were treated worse than dogs. Amid someone's pleas for mercy, she timidly asked how to raise her rank. He replied that for this she needed to participate in weekly fights held in the tower. "What kind of crazy place is this?" thought the prisoner in horror. And then that very girl with the broom approached her and asked, "Are you new here?" The newcomer fearfully confirmed that she had just arrived, but the girl coldly noted that she had stepped on the freshly cleaned floor. The girl flinched and hurried to apologize, blaming the guard. "Then the guard should be punished," she said with a smile. The newcomer couldn't believe her ears, not understanding what was happening. Suddenly, 2 other prisoners approached them, attracted by her words. One of them looked at her lustfully, glad that the boredom was broken. They thought the prison was full of beasts, and here was such a delicate flower. The newcomer realized with horror that the guard wasn't going to intervene at all. A prisoner grabbed her by the chin, suggesting they have some fun. But the girl with the broom didn't even flinch. Her gaze became icy. The prisoner familiarly put his hand on her head, not expecting any consequences. The newcomer begged the guard to intervene, but he just coldly asked, "Intervene in what?" She wanted to point out the obvious threat, but was interrupted by a sudden surge of energy. Suddenly, a powerful, blinding aura burst from the girl with the broom. The broom soared into the air, surrounded by magical light, terrifying the newcomer to death. The insolent prisoners were thrown back by an unknown force. "So, can this be considered self-defense?" she asked with a smile. She stood in the center of the storm of her power, calm and absolutely confident. The newcomer was in shock, never having seen such a powerful aura in her life. She offered up a prayer surrounded by divine radiance, a prayer that her broom would gain the strength to beat up the prisoners. The newcomer watched in horror as a magical seal appeared on the broom. The next moment, the broom crashed down on one of the bullies' faces with force. The second prisoner didn't even have time to squeak before he met the same fate. Then she calmly declared that it was her family broom that did it, not her. The guard decided she was only strong at a distance and tried to attack her up close. Without losing a second, he rushed at her, intending to grab her. But when he grabbed her, he was met only with an icy smirk and a devilish gleam in her eyes. But she easily threw him aside with a single sweep of her magic broom. The elderly warden looked at her in fury, not believing his eyes. He shouted her name in anger. Mint! Started another fight while in punishment again? The old man raged. But Mint, accused of murder, just sighed wearily. She is the only top-ranked prisoner, the true alpha of this prison. The narrative shifts to the past, explaining the nature of the local power. Kia. This energy possesses limitless potential and endless forms. Some use it to strengthen their bodies, others to control the elements. Still others can read minds or, like this girl, control puppets. And Mint turned out to have the greatest talent for Kia, allowing her to surpass everyone. "Do you ever think before you do something?" came the warden's furious shout. He slammed the table, yelling that he had forbidden her from touching newcomers. The warden forbade her from using Kia, since her power could kill people, but Mint calmly replied that it was self-defense. She explained that the prisoners dared to touch Amy and Angel, which left the warden dumbfounded. Mint showed 2 strands of her hair, naming one Amy and the other Angel. She sweetly added that they were hurt, to which the warden exploded. "Those are just hair extensions." He didn't understand why she let them grab her and asked if all her charges had gone mad. Mint replied with a smile that she wasn't sure if they were alive, but promised to pretend to calm them down. But in reality, if words worked on them, they wouldn't have ended up in this prison. In Niflheim, even sane people go mad, and Mint had long since abandoned common sense to survive. Clinging to vague memories of her past life, she can still pretend to be human. But it seems her patience and ability to pretend are already at their limit. She interrupts him, directly asking what he really wants. The warden clicks his tongue in annoyance, complaining about her manners, but that's nothing new for them. And then he asks a question that catches her off guard. "Do you want to get out of here?" Mint considers it a cruel joke, giving false hope to someone sentenced for life. He offers her a deal. She does a job for him, and he declares her dead on paper. The warden offers her not freedom, but the only possible way out. Sometimes chances appear out of nowhere, almost like a lie, and this is exactly such a case. Her task is to protect an important new prisoner who will arrive soon. The newcomer must not only survive but become the top in this prison. That's the condition. She understands that Niflheim is a lawless wasteland, but she simply has no other choice. With a confident smirk, she agrees, saying, "Leave it to me." However, she has her own condition, to seal the deal with a Kia oath binding their hearts. The warden agrees, and their handshake is sealed by a magical oath. The oath is made. She will receive a new identity, as if disappearing from this world forever. Having achieved her goal, she gives him a triumphant and cunning smirk. "At least I tried to say it as cool as possible," an inner voice sounds. Suddenly, the narrator turns out to be a guy who is shocked that he will have to disguise himself. The action shifts to a few days earlier, showing us a prison cell. The guy, now in Mint's guise, packs his things into a box. She announces to her cellmates that her place will soon be free. 2 of her charges, Ramona and Daryl, are completely baffled. Ramona, a poison specialist, excitedly suggests that Mint is being executed. Daryl, a body enhancement master, gloats that she has finally met her comeuppance. But both are panicked as Mint calmly confirms that this is indeed what happened. Ramona calls her crazy and Mint just advises not to worry. Then she turns to the newcomer named Hayla, saying she is unlucky. Mint explains that she usually looks after newcomers because this place is pure hell. But now she will be replaced by those 2 reliable guys who are already ready to fight. As a farewell, she wishes everyone to take care and sends greetings to the others. Such a farewell convinces them completely that she is being led to execution. Having packed her things, she thinks it's time to start the work assigned to her by the warden. The action returns to their conversation, where we see Mint's true form, a guy. He was surprised to learn that the honored guest he needed to protect was a man. The warden informs her that she is being transferred to the male wing of the prison. Mint, continuing to play her role, feigns complete bewilderment. She sarcastically reminds him that she is a woman, to which the warden orders her to hide it. Her cheeky joke infuriates the old man, and he shouts that he meant camouflage. The warden sighs wearily, ending the pointless argument about her common sense. She will be given an artifact for disguise and the rest will be done for her. She just needs to prepare to disappear. He was mentally ready, but seeing his new reflection in the mirror was still strange. The guy steps away from the mirror, admitting that the quality of the artifact is surprisingly good. The disguise is perfect. Not only the hair color changed, but also the eye color. The physique remained similar, but the bone structure became distinctly masculine. The new image is the complete opposite of Mint, an unremarkable guy with chestnut hair and a gentle gaze. He considers this appearance the embodiment of ordinariness, but admits it is perfect for not standing out. But in this whole situation, there is one huge plus that changes everything. He enters the male wing not as a prisoner, but as a new guard. Moreover, he won't have to share a cell with the target, which gives him freedom of action. His new name is Garrett, and he joins the male wing as a rookie guard. For this, he spent 10 days cramming the thick guard regulations. Exactly 10 days have passed since Mint officially disappeared. And by Niflheim's laws, if the boss is absent for more than 7 days, a new one is chosen. He wonders who has now become the boss in his old block. However, now it's no longer his concern. He is already addressed as Officer Garrett. His former identity is completely erased. Appearance, name, gender, everything has changed. Another guard informs him that his partner, Officer Steven, will be a little late, but it doesn't matter because when it's all over, he will start a completely new life. He recalls that the prisoner arriving today is his honored guest. After all, he has spent a full 10 years in this cursed prison. Hope for salvation with the arrival of the main hero turned out to be just a foolish fantasy. In the original story, the prison was just a backdrop, and the escape was described in a few lines. It was too weak a clue, and the exact time of the hero's arrival remained a mystery. Therefore, there is only one way to escape. Make this guest the new boss of Niflheim. Another guard leads him to the cell, saying that the new prisoner is already inside. For him, this is the beginning of the path to escape, and he will finally see the face of his target. Behind the bars, the legs of that very prisoner are visible. The partner introduces Garrett to the prisoner with white hair, informing him that he is his new overseer. Garrett looks intently at the face of his target. In front of him is the prisoner Helios, a guy with white hair and piercing purple eyes. Garrett freezes, unable to believe his eyes. Only one question runs through his mind: why is the main character of the original story here? He cannot understand why his honored guest is the protagonist of the novel. Memories of the plot surface. The Duke's heir, falsely accused by his own father. Helios was the first to escape this impregnable prison alone. Garrett was sure that the hero would end up here as a commoner, not as a VIP. Helios's appearance is a lifeline, his only chance for freedom. But he decides not to blindly wait for the hero to find an unknown way to escape on his own. For him, already imprisoned, the chief's plan to make the guest the king of the prison is the easiest path. Therefore, having drawn conclusions, he takes the first step toward his goal. The first step is to get close to this guy, using his position as a guard. He thinks about how best to start the acquaintance, and decides to start with a compliment, because, as he believes, it's always pleasant to see handsome men. He confidently states that he has a trained eye, and is surely popular among those like Helios. Such a compliment enrages Helios, and he bursts out with insults. Garrett calmly replies that he is actually very clean, which confuses his partner. The partner tries to whisper to him that his words might be misunderstood, and then it dawns on him. He forgot that he is currently playing the role of a man, and his words sounded extremely ambiguous. He tries to fix the blunder, but only makes it worse by comparing Helios's face to that of a courtesan. At that moment, his late partner, Corporal Steven, appears. Steven sarcastically asks if Garrett enjoys mocking people. He suggests that Garrett is just taking out his complexes on those more handsome than himself. To get out of it, Garrett smiles and admits that Steven is very perceptive. Continuing the act, he says he envies handsome men because he himself is ugly and hates himself. He theatrically apologizes to Helios, shouting that it's all because of envy for his beauty. Steven bursts out laughing, admitting that at first he really took him for an idiot. Thus, the misunderstanding was resolved, and now he is perceived as a rookie desperately striving for promotion. He recalls how the chief made him cram the regulations and realizes that this knowledge will come in handy. Steven explains that rookies are given one prisoner to familiarize themselves with the territory. Then he shocks Garrett by saying that Helios is accused of the mass murder of an entire village. Stephen philosophically notes that sane people do not end up here. Garrett thinks that he himself is not much different, after which the partners head to their shift. Leading Helios down the corridor, he mentally suggests they get along as falsely accused men. He shows Helios his cell for a month, adding that what happens next depends on him. Garrett reveals the prison system. To get better conditions, you need to climb the ranks in the tower. Introducing himself, he announces that for some time, he will be Helios's personal overseer. Helios smirks and asks if that means Garrett will just be following him around like a shadow. Garrett clarifies. His task for the month is to make sure Helios neither dies nor loses limbs. Removing the handcuffs, he adds that most guards neglect this duty. But unlike them, he is firmly determined to protect Helios. Helios chuckles because Garrett is smaller and weaker, and it's still unknown who will protect whom. Garrett replies that with Kia's strength it doesn't matter, and shocks Helios with knowledge about his sealed magic. Suddenly, he strikes, stopping his fist a centimeter from Helios's face. He praises the guy's reflexes and suggests he strike back, which stuns him. Garrett urges him on, and Helios, though confused, accepts the challenge. Gathering his courage, Helios swings, putting all his strength into the blow. However, Garrett easily blocks the strike with one hand and immediately trips him. A scratch appears on Helios's cheek, and his eyes show complete astonishment. Helios crashes to the floor, unable to stay on his feet. Lying on the floor, he asks in complete bewilderment what that was. Garrett explains that this is the difference between using Kia and not using it. He advises that if someone attacks, the first thing to do is aim for the eyes. When asked if this is part of his duties, Garrett smiles and replies that it's because Helios is cute. Helios shouts in rage not to be mocked, but Garrett insists it's a compliment. He thoughtfully adds that Helios has much to learn, such as recognizing poisons. By a fortunate coincidence, the trial tower where ranks can be raised opens tomorrow. Garrett offers him to either enter the tower immediately or wait a week. Helios asks if it's true that the upper floors are closer to the exit and receives an affirmative answer. Garrett mentally sums up, the higher the floor, the better the chances of escape, but these are just empty hopes. After considering everything, Helios firmly declares he will participate in the trial. Garrett accepts his decision with a satisfied smile. He mentally promises to take care of Helios until his release. A few days later, a furious scream echoes in the prison yard. Garrett calmly watches the scene, surrounded by a flow of energy. Suddenly, Helios delivers a crushing blow to another prisoner. Garrett notes with surprise that the main character turned out to be much more hot-tempered than he expected. Helios calls him over, but Garrett mentally corrects him, demanding to be addressed as Sir Garrett. Helios angrily asks if his words about protection were just empty talk. Garrett calmly approaches Helios. He coldly asks if Helios almost died or lost limbs. He explains that here such skirmishes are just the beginning, and weakness means the end. Then he begins to concentrate a powerful stream of golden energy in his hand. Before astonished Helios, he creates a huge shining shield. He explains that this is what an attack capable of causing real harm looks like. Helios looks at him, unable to hide his shock. Mentally, he notes that hiding true Kia weakens its power. The other prisoners are shocked. They don't understand why the guard protects his ward. Helios sarcastically thanks him for the vivid lesson, and Garrett explains it was a demonstration of bloodlust. Helios shouts in embarrassment that he was misunderstood, and Garrett suggests he have a good cry. Stephen approaches them, advising the rookie to know his place, even though he aims to be a chief. Stephen smirks and announces to the prisoners that it's time to enter the tower. The prisoners, including Helios, are marched to the trial site in formation. Helios walks tensely behind Garrett, not knowing what awaits them ahead. Off-screen, it is explained that the tower is meant to break prisoners' spirits and assign their ranks. The Niflheim Tower is 100 floors of trials that also regulate prisoner numbers. Simply put, the trial is a confrontation with terrifying monsters. The main task is to survive extreme conditions while fighting horrific creatures. The theme of the first 20 floors is insects and animals, and the trial is about to begin. Helios asks Garrett what that was in the yard. He clarifies he means the shield, and Garrett is surprised that he doesn't know what Kia is. Garrett advises him to worry only about survival for now, which puzzles Helios. The guard announces they have arrived at the tower and opens the huge gates. Another overseer orders the prisoners to enter, and the guards to go to the waiting room. Garrett decides to give Helios a hint, but realizes there are too many unnecessary ears around. Grabbing his hand, he whispers advice to be careful not to be torn apart, especially the legs. He orders Helios to enter and come back alive. Helios stops him, asking what will happen if he survives. Garrett promises that in that case, he will tell him how he created that shield. Helios finds himself in the huge arena of the tower, surrounded by a glow. Meanwhile, Garrett watches him from the guard room, experiencing the other side of the trial for the first time. Another overseer approaches him and asks if he is the rookie assigned to Stephen. The senior officer introduces himself as Sergeant Kane, and Garrett politely greets him. Kane familiarly suggests calling him bro, which greatly embarrasses Garrett. The sergeant insists, and Garrett awkwardly utters, bro. Kane asks him to repeat it, and Garrett says the word again with a stone face. The sergeant mentally marvels. This audacious guy really called him that on the first request. Angered, Kane decides to teach the rookie a lesson and lunges at him. But Garrett is faster and lands a precise blow to the sergeant's leg. Kane screams in pain, and Garrett mentally scolds himself for instinctively using Kia. The sergeant is shocked because only Imperial Knights can envelop their bodies in pure Kia. Irritated, Kane orders him to go watch over his ward, and Garrett agrees sweetly. Garrett turns away, his gaze again fixed on the monitor where he searches for the main character. Meanwhile, on the arena, Helios, breathing heavily, leans on the weapon given to him. He and the other prisoners look in horror at what has appeared before them. From the darkness, a pack of giant rats with glowing eyes advances on them. A voice announces the start of the first floor trial, inviting them to choose weapons. Prisoners are offered to select from 1 to 3 types of weapons from the rack. Suddenly, the gates open, and a huge pack of rats rushes straight at them. Chaos begins. One prisoner screams for help as rats attack him. Another is knocked to the ground and desperately begs to be pulled out of there. Helios struggles to fend off the monsters, blocking their attacks with his weapon. After some time, only 5 prisoners remain alive. The survivors realize that the attacks follow a pattern: 20 minutes of fighting and 5 minutes of rest. Helios counts that only 2 minutes remain until the end of the rest period. He looks up, unable to believe this could go on forever, and notices a figure. It is Garrett watching him from the guard room, and Helios understands that he is being observed. Helios recalls his hint about the legs and understands why he instinctively chose a spear, but he still cannot understand exactly what Garrett meant about the danger to the legs. Garrett continues to silently watch the arena, giving no signs. Helios, looking up at him, begs him to say at least something,